This is Wayne Dick of Dick Industries and owner of Rampy. You are listening to the Builder Sessions.
Welcome to the Builder Sessions, a podcast where we chat with your favorite builders.
We get to know them, their stories, and hopefully inspire you to get off the couch and build something cool. I'm Hoff.
And I'm Rosie, and on a Builder Sessions exclusive, we're pumped to introduce you to our local series, where we showcase builders and makers from around our neck of the woods, Southern Alberta, Canada. We wanted to highlight some of our local talent to show you that anyone from anywhere can get into it and build something cool.
In the first episode of our local series, we chat with Wayne Dick from Dick Industries, Alter Speedo, and owner of Rampy, the far from stock 62 Rampside Corvair pickup that hauls ass. We talk about a ton in this episode, including his past experiences that have shaped who he is today, mental health, the Rampy build, and a ton more.
Please enjoy our interview with Wayne. Wayne, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're really excited. The first time I saw what you were doing is I saw Rampy on social media.
Yeah.
And then from a teacher context, I was like, I need to get this guy in our class. So then you were awesome and you brought Rampy to our welding class.
That was a really fun day.
It was super fun. And then I was like, wait a second, we should get him on the show. So welcome to the Builder Sessions.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is actually my first podcast.
First of many, I'm sure, because you're fresh off your photo shoot with Larry Chan.
Yeah.
Right? And
yeah.
And LS Fest, and you won an award. Was it Best of Engineering or something at Street Machine
best
Weekend?
Engineered at Street Machine
Best
Weekend.
Engineered.
Yeah.
Hey, a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. It's an exciting time.
That's amazing.
Right,
so we're like, we need to get this guy on the show. So for those of our listeners who aren't aware of yourself and Rampy and everything you have going on, share a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Wayne Dick. I grew up in Picture Butte, Alberta, and basically lived there my whole life till I moved to the States, and lived down in the States for about 7 years, going to school down there. So did a lot of school, came out with no diploma. It was more life experience in the end for me, and I don't regret that. Actually, for a while after school, that did kind of bother me that I didn't end up graduating from anything. But in the end, the experiences I had and the knowledge I did gain, I don't need a piece of paper for that. So came back to Canada in 2009, I believe it was, and settled in roots west of Welling, and that's where we're at now.
Away we go. Wow. I love what you said there about, because in my life, I think that's everyone's journey, not to minimize it at all, but so I had a background in automotives. I was in auto parts. I went to Wyotech. I did some youth group stuff with my church, and then I went into education. And during all those times, I look back at the other times thinking, what a waste of money or what a waste of time. And look where I'm at now, all of those things are serving where I'm at now. Yeah. So you can't live with a regret, because it all helps you become the person you are at the moment.
I think the more life experience and the more failure you feat in your development type years, if you can harness that and use that to create a greater energy within yourself rather than come down on yourself, I think that's the struggle that people face. And I mean, let's face it, I grew up with a last name Dick, right? Like, I had to be positive about adversity from a very young age, you know, and that's just simple preschool teasing stuff, right? But I had to learn to let that just roll off my back, and I've been able to amplify that into, you know, where I'm at right now, as far as not saying that because that's the only aspect was just, oh, I got teased about my name a little bit in school. No, that's not what I mean. It's just the ability to take hardships and trials, and just, my favorite thing is the bounce back, to be honest with you, about everything I've done, is when we move somewhere and I don't know anyone, how fast can I network? How fast can I get my people surrounding me and helping me and saying me helping them
Yeah.
and growing together. And that's kind of how I know growing up, my dad was actually really worried about me. I'm sure most parents are, but I had very little direction, as far as what do you want to do when you grow up? I still don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
But if it's what I'm doing right now, I'll ride that wave as long as I can.
That's awesome.
I think there's a lot of pressure too going somewhere and doing schooling, and parents, whether it's parents or even pressure on yourself to, okay, I'm going to here, going to get a degree or going to get some sort of training. And I think there's a lot of pressure on people. And like you said, the life experience, the friendships, the networking, different things, the trying to build a community and figure out, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of lost. And I guess when people are paying a lot of money for education now, that can also be a bit of a deterrent too. But I think there's something to be said about people getting life experience that just makes them a more well-rounded person, I think, as they get older and mature and figure out what they want to do. They know what they want to do.
Yeah. And I think that, I don't know if it's changed. You'd be able to shed some light on that, Lance, as far as in the school. But when I was growing up, if you weren't geared towards a professional career as far as doctor, lawyer, dentist, I mean, okay, well, I guess you can do the trades, right? But now it's like, no, I want you to do the trades. I want you to do this because not only can you get hands-on knowledge that you can use in everyday life and use once you have a family and you have to provide for your family and you're looking to save money, when you learn how to do things yourself, I mean, it's far more advantageous to you financially to be able to do it yourself a lot of times than hire someone else to do it. So I'm not knocking dentists, but I'm just going to use that as an example. If I went to be a dentist, which I was not intelligent enough to sit there that long, let's just clear the air on that right now. That was never in the cards for me. But as a dentist, would I be lifting trucks right now? Would I have built Rampy? Would I be driving old cars as often as I can? Likely not, right? And this is my passion. This is what I enjoy doing. So I'm, it just, everything seemed to fall into place to be where I'm happy right now.
So right now, what are you doing? Where are you at with things?
With things in my life right now.
It seems like you have about 1,000 irons in the fire at
There's
the moment.
always too many irons in the fire. Always. However, with that, if you can manage that stress, you always have an opportunity to make money. You always have an opportunity to be busy, and you never have, unwanted downtime as far as like, man, what am I going to do? I lost my job. Now what? I got my class 1. I guess I was probably in my early 30s. Maybe when I got mid 30s, I guess, when I got my class 1, which I always knew I wanted to get. I never wanted to be a full-time driver, but that to me is such an asset to have. Unfortunately, now it costs so much money to get your class 1
seriously.
that it's not something you can get as a fallback anymore. I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity before the increase came, because now, I mean, literally, if all else fails, transportation is a huge industry. I can always find something to provide for myself. Right now, I'm doing speedometer conversions for the export market. I own Alter Speedo. It's a business in Lethbridge. We have a sister company down in Billings, Montana. And basically, all the vehicles that you see being hauled southbound, those have to be converted from kilometers an hour to miles per hour. And we do that. Now, some of them are as simple as a faceplate or backplate change. Others of them require a little more in-depth, require some programming. And, just as I've been doing this, again, you have to have a few irons in the fire so that you're ready for the downtime. This is all based on the dollar. This could stop right now and it could be over. What are you going to do now? Well, I've got a few projects that I could finish and sell. I could hop in a truck. There's a number of things. I never worry about where the next dollar is coming from because I have ideas going through my head at all times.
Yeah. So how did you get into like that whole thing about speedometer and like the conversions? That's fascinating to me because that's very specialized.
It's a very niche market.
So how did you get into that?
So
what's the story behind that?
I actually will rewind a little bit. I was a commercial house painter.
Oh, okay.
I painted homes with Hamilton Painting here in Lethbridge, and then on my own for a number of years and followed a number of different contractors. Did a lot of houses in Waterton, in that area, and south of Lethbridge. And I could make painting fun. You know, we had a good time. Every day we laughed and we got work done. I had a good crew of guys. And you know, if you can make something like painting fun, I'm pretty sure you can make anything fun, because that has to be one of the worst jobs. You know, when you go to tackle your own house, it's like, oh my gosh, right? Like
even like a bedroom.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
It's like, no.
Cutting it is not fun at all.
Yeah. But you can make it fun, trust me. So I was painting houses and looking for a change. And then I have a friend out in Colehurst who has a Toyota wrecking yard. And I saw his business develop, you know, from the beginning to being very successful. And so I tried to mimic that by buying Honda vehicles as I was still painting. So I started buying a bunch of Hondas and started parting them out. The unfortunate thing, or fortunate thing about Hondas, is the engine outlasts the chassis.
Yeah.
You know, they rust away before anything happens mechanically. So I think in the 3 or 4 years I tried that side business, I sold one engine, and the rest was people wanting body parts. Well, you can buy the new stamped body parts for $25 to $30. I mean, I can't even pull it off the car for that, right?
Yeah.
So then it turned into more of a pick and pull, and then I got tired of babysitting things, and then the county shut me down where I was at, and I had to move to another location. So I had permission to do it where I was at, but then the fellow involved, and I won't mention any names, was a bit of a shyster, and next thing I know, I was shut down and had to move stuff. So once I moved stuff, I already had a kind of a sour taste in my mouth for it.
Yeah.
I was kind of looking for an out, and my buddy who has the Toyota wrecking yard, he had a crusher show up there one day, and he's like, hey, if you have some vehicles that need parting out, you come learn how to run the crusher. They pay you more per ton, because then you can just crush your own vehicles, load their trucks. Oh, that's great. I've you know, I had a couple hundred vehicles, and I probably had 60 that were ready to be crushed. So I went out to his place, learned how to run it, learned how to do it. As soon as they finished there, they came out to my place west of Welling. And as soon as I got the vehicles that I had set aside for crushing done, I didn't stop. I just kept going. I crushed literally everything I had. I was like, I was having too much fun. And as soon as I finished, I called up my buddy, and we basically said at the same time, we need to buy one of these. Like, this is awesome. And so we did. He went out and bought a crusher. I came to Finning here in town and bought a loader. They're basically the same price. And we started a scrap metal business, like literally over a couple month period of just kind of getting this stuff lined up and figured out. So then I shut down the painting business, and we went in business scrap metal full bore, and did that for a number of years till we had 2 complete setups, and then we each ran our own crew. We split the company, I believe, in 2014, and I had my own crew, he had his own crew, and we're still friends to this day. It wasn't a forced split. It was a, you know, things are paid for. Let's move on and do our own thing. Anyway, 2017, the price of scrap started coming down, and when it got cold in the wintertime, I didn't want to be out there picking up steel.
Yeah.
We focused mainly on old farmyard cleanup. You know, you've got 3 or 4 generations sometimes of scrap metal that guys our age now, we don't go to the scrap pile and cut something off an old cultivator. We go buy a new piece of steel, you know, but the old generation was a little different. You know, they kept things like that. So we did a ton of farmyard cleanups, like all over. And when it got wintertime, I didn't want to crush. I didn't want to fire up the equipment, spend the time getting it heated up so that we could use it. So I started doing some temporary driving for another company on the south end of town here. And I noticed some of the vehicles that we were hauling were in kilometers still, and some were in miles. And so I just asked the dealers that we were delivering to, hey, what's the story with this? And they told me it was a bit of a pain in the butt to have someone come, pull the speedometers out, ship them off, get them converted. They get shipped back, and then they put them in their vehicles, and then they can sell them. And so with that knowledge, I came home. I talked to the trucking company to make sure it would be okay if I talked to their dealers, right? I'm not going to step on anybody's toes that is not an opportunity. And so
Of course, yeah.
I got their blessing and ordered a bunch of stuff off eBay so that I could learn what not to do as far as taking speedometers apart. I had repaired a few of my own over the years, so I wasn't afraid to take things apart. I come from a mechanical background. I took automotive service technology in college. Well, 1 year. There's another 1 year of something that I didn't finish, right?
But it gave you experiences.
It gave me
right?
experiences,
Yeah.
right? And, you know, of course, in high school, that was the highest grades I got was shop class, right? Like that's for me, hands-on was always better than the book. And so moving forward, back to speedometers, I figured out how to break them, what not to do before I started working on people's stuff. And that was, gosh, almost 8 years ago now.
Wow.
That I started that. So I was doing it at the same time we were crushing, and I kept a crushing crew going for a while. And then finally I just shut that down and started selling off equipment. I think 2020 was the last piece of equipment that I sold from that business. And now like speedometers is full time.
Was that a steep learning curve going from crushing metal to figuring out how to like the technology side and the software, so to speak, for speedos?
Yeah, I'm not super technology savvy. I guess now I am more so. I still, you know, I know how to do stuff. I might not know the why, you know, which is something that I've actually been looking at going to school for. You know, I've got good guys that work for me, so it's something that I can actually go and do a specialty training for this type of thing, which, you know, if I can pay someone to teach me more about it, then I am absolutely 100%.
And then it'll serve your company's needs. You're not just
Exactly.
getting a random degree
Yes.
that may or may not serve what you're doing.
Yeah. Apologies to my, you know, English instructors, but I have no use for writing papers and no use for that type of thing. I mean, I'm glad I know how to spell correctly. I think that's an important thing. But yeah, there's just a few things now that I would like to get the training on to become a little more knowledgeable with the industry that I'm in.
Yeah.
It's probably ever changing the way vehicles are going from even say early 2000s to now. That's probably a huge jump in conversions, and like there's so much technology and everything in that.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not even a gauge cluster anymore. It's a screen. A lot of times,
a
right?
lot of them are digital. And the crazy thing is so Canadian speedometers are considered bilingual. We use icons for lots of things, but in the US, for example, our park brake, you know, you pull your emergency brake. Up here, most vehicles, it just has parentheses around an exclamation mark or something like that. There are some, like Fords, I know, will say park brake, things like that, but most of them don't. That is one curveball that got thrown to us about 3 years ago. DOT came down hard on the vehicles that were sitting in the auto auction of Montana, and there was over 600 vehicles there that had to become brake compliant. It has to say brake when you pull that emergency brake, because for some reason a U.S. customer can't understand that, I guess, you know, according to DOT. And there was, you know, a certain fine associated with every vehicle that was sold without that. So right away, you know, our company down there had to go and redo a bunch of vehicles in a short amount of time.
Wow.
On the fly almost.
On the fly. Yeah. And we just got thrown another curveball here 2 weeks ago. There is an airbag light that isn't even present in Dodge trucks in Canada or the US. But because it's not present when it's being exported, it's no longer allowed. But even in the production of it in the US, it's not even an option. But it's just, and yeah, I'm going to come down hard on the DOT. It's just some guy sitting behind a desk just looking to be a prick.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. Like, I understand laws, I understand rules, but I also have always had a hard time with the, why does it matter about that? You know, just change it. Change it. You know, I think everybody, if you pull the e-brake on, until I talked about it, did you even know what it's a red light on the dash, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? If I notice a red light, I'm going to look for something and turn it off, right?
Yeah.
I mean, give me
Or
a
you
break.
might be able to notice it while you're driving it too.
Yeah.
That could be the second
exactly.
indicator too.
Oh,
right?
wait a minute. Let's see. Oh, that's an exclamation mark.
Yeah.
Well, that can't be my emergency brake,
Why
but I'm
is
not
the
moving.
back end smoking and have flat spots on my tires?
Yeah. No,
Someone doing
I
a
have
burn?
I can't even say a love-hate relationship. I have a distaste relationship with the DOT.
It's almost like a make work project, and just
It seems like it, because a lot of that stuff came during COVID when everybody's working from home.
Yeah.
And so then they just, well, how can we come down hard on this, and how can we, make it? And if it didn't affect my livelihood directly, I guess I probably wouldn't care, right? But when you have to retool things, and when this happened, none of the product that we could buy was compliant. So you literally, there was like a 3 to 4 week period where nothing was available because the stuff that was manufactured in the United States from some of our suppliers, where it was not compliant.
So rolling off the assembly line in the States, not compliant either?
Rolling off the assembly line was.
Oh, okay.
But for the aftermarket supply companies that we use, they didn't even know either. Didn't even know.
wow.
And I can understand why, because what they do is they take different vehicles have different needle sweeps, which is how far it goes. Our vehicles typically top out at 200 kilometers an hour. That's 120 miles an hour. Whereas, for example, our diesel Super Duties, we top out at 200 kilometers an hour. Theirs top out at 100 miles an hour. So we have to change that needle sweep. So what they were doing is they were taking the Canadian faceplate and just converting it to miles and making it 120 miles an hour, right? So that you didn't have to program and change that needle sweep. But with that, they just copied all the icons and, chucked it in there and didn't realize that it didn't say brake until it was noticed by the DOT, and nobody cared.
Wow. I wonder what that moment was like. Were they sitting in a truck? Were they, hey, wait a second.
Yeah.
Like, how you had to do a lot of work to find that out.
Well, every vehicle that is exported, there's, I believe, 16 pictures associated with that vehicle. And it's a picture of the speedometer up close and a picture of the mileage up close. A lot of things that I understand, right? And now it has to be, one of those pictures has to be the brake icon.
Wow.
Yeah, like super nerdy about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding. So getting into cars and stuff, where did your passion for cars come from?
So I grew up on a farm, and we had motorcycles and four-wheelers and things like that growing up, and I used to love to take things apart, whether it be a lawnmower engine or, maybe a irrigation mover engine, these small little Briggs & Stratton. I was fascinated with how things ran and how to make things go faster, right? And so my dad was not very mechanically inclined. I mean, he did run the farm and he was able to do the basics and stuff, but when it came to engine rebuilds and things like that, it went to the shop, right? Not there. So I don't know. I think it was just something I was born with, to be honest with you, as far as like having to know how the mechanics of a vehicle is. And I mean, growing up, that's the pictures I drew. I drew dune buggies, I drew semis, I drew motorcycles. Like, that was just what I was into. That's what fascinated me when I left the farm and we went to town is, I love that vehicle. Oh, I don't like that one. It's just, that's what I was programmed, I guess.
That's interesting, because there's a lot of times where those younger years where you get influenced by a parent, a grandparent, they're usually involved in that. So to have your dad not really, it sounded like this was mostly you to be into this, and that's kind of unheard of, so to speak, sometimes. Usually it's, somebody involved with you, teaching you, showing you, but to be able to just be like, I want to give this a shot and kind of tinker and stuff, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I did have an uncle that, and I still have that uncle, that is very mechanically inclined, and I noticed, they were always driving different vehicles, right? I mean, they weren't always fancy vehicles, but it was, I liked that of changing vehicles, where we had the 65 Galaxy here when I was a kid. I used to stand on the seat of that by my mom.
Wow.
Right? I
awesome.
remember standing on that front seat, driving to town with my mom until she hit the ditch. As soon as he hit the ditch and that went through a barbed wire fence, my dad said, "That's it. You're not driving that anymore." So we had a 77 F-150 pickup, and then we ended up with a Pontiac, like 4-door car kind of thing. And we didn't change vehicles, right? You know, but I noticed my neighbor, who was actually ended up being head of the mechanics department at LCC, he would change vehicles often because he bought and sold vehicles. And then my uncle did the same thing. And I did get that influence. I picked up on that from them because it was exciting to me. You know, if we wore the same T-shirt every day, it's boring, right? But if you change that up and you have your favorite shirt or you have a couple that are different, I mean, that's kind of the way I've pictured vehicles my whole life is, you know what, I really want one of those. Okay, well, I can't afford it. So how can I afford it? Well, if I buy 2 or 3 of these and just save up a little, I can then buy that one that I want, right? And then that's what I've done. And I buy that vehicle and it's like, cool. Next,
Look
you know,
at that.
yeah. Like I've had many people criticize me over the years. You're never satisfied. You're never satisfied. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I satisfied my curiosity.
Yeah.
Now
There's another one.
there's the next one.
Yeah.
You know, there's the next one. Most of the time I drive a vehicle 6 to 8 months and it's gone. Hasn't been until the last few years that I've actually kept vehicles for a number of years.
Yeah.
Because I guess maybe I've got a little bit tired of constantly changing, and I've found through experience the ones that I like and the ones that I'll stick with. I mean, the truck I drive now most of the time is a 2014 GM with 320,000 kilometers on it. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, I had a new one not too long ago. I drove it for 6 months, sold it south, and I'll go back to that 2014. Like, I've found what I like there as far as the go-to. Now, with the extras and things like that and older vehicles, you know, I've trimmed down my collection a lot because I've realized that I can only do so much. Like, when I was crushing vehicles, you should have seen my yard.
You probably had.
I brought shit home.
Oh man.
Sorry
yeah.
if I'm not allowed to say that.
It's all good.
Okay. I brought stuff home every week, you know, and my yard was full. And my wife was like, Dickie, what are you doing?
What are you
Like,
doing?
I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. I always had the build in my mind, which I found out in the end is just as fun without building it, right? Yeah. To kind of come up with the list of, you know what, this is what I do here, here, and here.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd bring it in the shop and tinker a little bit on it. But after a bit, it'd be like, you know what, I don't actually want to invest the money in this and I can sell it. But in my head, I've already...
You've done it.
I've done it. I've gone through that creative process. I've satisfied that curiosity, but that's not what I want to end up with, right? And it took up until I built Rampy, you know, with a friend of mine. It took that long to actually finally find the one vehicle I was willing to pull out all the stops, make the investment, and just go all out on. You know, I've built a number of vehicles over the years. And as soon as they're done, time to sell it, right? I've satisfied that. But finally, you know, when I found this truck, I was going to college down in Idaho, and it was $700, and I was living on $1,000 a month. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
Like, literally, I had a wife and 2 kids going to school for chiropractor. So I actually went to school for paramedic, right? I was working in the Crow's Nest Pass as an EMT. I did an EMT course through St. John's Ambulance here in town. I did the EMR course, then I did the EMT course. I believe it was another school that was piloting that through St. John's Ambulance, but I did that all here. Worked for the ambulance, loved that. Like, one of the most rewarding jobs I've had at all time. Knew it wasn't the end all be all for me, but because of my high school grades, I couldn't get into any paramedic programs in Canada. And at the time I was like, I'm 27 years old, guys. Like, do you not think that I've evolved?
Seriously.
And you know, I'm willing to do this now. And I've been an EMT for 2 years. Like, I'm in this. And I could not get in without upgrading. So I went stateside because I was accepted as a mature student.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that. And then actually the one kicker was they made me retake the EMT course, which I'd already had and been working for 2 years with Crow's Nest Pass EMS, right? Whatever. That's an easy A for me, right? You know, I've got the experience. So I went down there. I did that for the first, I believe it was a 2-year course, maybe 1 year or 2 year course. I think it was 2. Did that and basically taught the class, because once the instructor found out that I'd been doing this, she was actually taking nursing at the same time that she was teaching. And so she'd be like, hey, Wayne, like, can you,
I got some homework.
I've got some home, I've got to get this done. I'll be here, but do you mind, talking about this thing? No problem, which I loved. I'm a people person.
Yeah.
I was shy growing up, but I actually grew up LDS, served a mission down in California, which really opened up my ability to talk to people and ability to communicate, So my wife doesn't think I can communicate very well yet. So that's something we work on, right? That's probably everybody's case.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. Again, that
It's
makes
on the
three
list
of
that
us.
never gets checked off.
Yeah, it never gets checked off, right? So
The
anyway,
honey-do list. Yeah.
I don't even know where I was going with that.
Oh, you said you're a people person, and doing your mission kind of helped you open up that way. But you were teaching the class.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So teaching that class just kind of became second nature, and it wasn't all the time. She did do her job.
Yeah.
But there was a couple times that I filled in for her. So anyway, finished that year with, it was a 4.0 GPA, like no problem. And my practicum for that at the local hospital in Idaho Falls, that's where things started going south, because I was so willing to do things and not timid, because I'd been doing this for a while, that the doctors, like, do you want to try this? Heck yeah, I'll try that. Do you want to do this? You bet. Which was totally out of our scope of practice as an EMT, but I thought, well, if the doctor says do this,
Yeah.
do it, right? I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know I can't do that as an EMT, but if you're willing to teach me, I'm willing to try. Well, word got back to the head of the paramedic department at my school, and he was livid, right? Like absolutely livid, because, looking back, me doing something, if I'd have made a mistake, that would come on his head, right? But the way he handled it, and I'm sure we all have regrets in the way we have done things in the past, but the way he handled it just did not sit well with me. And I basically told him to go F himself, right? At a church school. So that was kind of the end of my my EMS career at that point, with him as the head of the paramedic department. Because I'm like, I cannot be taught by this guy. This is not my people. So from there, with the GPA I had, I just kind of rolled into a major in biology, minor in chemistry type thing. And I'm not good at chemistry. I did learn that very quickly. But with that GPA and another year of school, I was accepted into Cleveland Chiropractic College early because of the GPA and just probably mature student again. So we moved in 2007 to Kansas City, and I started chiropractic school. And it only took a year of that to realize that this is not actually where I want to be. This is not actually where I want to go in life. And I can't see myself spending time in a clinic day in and day out. I'm addicted to the change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm addicted to the, I guess, uncertainty of what my day is going to bring, rather than knowing, look, I'm going to go here. I've got this many people I'm seeing today. That was such a turnoff for me that we packed up 2009, moved back. So we left in 2003 is when I started school, came back in 2009. And I went back to painting because I'd done that a little bit before we left. And then fast forward through crushing and here to speedometers. So like I say, I've done a lot of schooling with no paper to show for it, but every aspect of that experience has got me to where I'm at today. So I have zero regrets with that.
I like that because you weren't afraid to just take a chance and do it.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, a lot of the kids we work with, Corey's a teacher too, wood shop at LCI.
Okay.
And a lot of the kids, it's scared to make mistakes, scared to take that step. And your choice, or choices to go to these schools, that's a big,
huge step.
You had to have known a little bit, like, I'm not sure if this is what I'm going to do, but let's try it out.
Absolutely.
But you took that risk, and it didn't work out, and that's okay. But that's a big fear of people, right? And so, I'm curious to know how like when that like doubt or whatever popped into your head, how did you just be like, get out of here, I'm gonna try this out? So
even like in high school, our counselor and stuff like that, when I'd talk about different careers, he'd look at me like, "Says Wayne, that's not a good fit for you," you know. And that is something that I never wanted to accept.
Yeah.
You know, being told that you're not good enough, right?
It's like a
Because
challenge in a sense. Like,
I
Yeah,
took it,
exactly.
you know, with that ability that I developed at a young age to let stuff roll off my back, which isn't always necessarily the best thing. You know, you do have to deal with your issues. You cannot bottle that shit up for years, and you can't.
Of course,
you know, you have to deal with that. You know, I was talking to a friend the other day. This tangent, are you fine with a tangent?
Of course, yeah. Tangents is the
So he lost a brother, he lost his dad, recently lost his mother, and he's struggling, right? Hasn't left his house in 3 months. I saw him out the other day. I just gave him a hug. I said, "You're loved, man. You're loved." Like, we work on our cars. We spend money on our cars. We spend money on maintaining our houses. Why do we not spend money on maintaining ourselves?
best. Yeah.
You know, there's,
Especially
I've been
guys.
to a counselor. I've
Yeah.
been to a counselor. She's a fantastic woman and has helped me deal with anger issues that I've held on to. You know, at $250 an hour, that's a tough pill to swallow. But I have no problem blowing $800 worth of tires off the back of Rampy in 60 seconds at LS Fest. I can save a couple $100, you know, every 2 or 3 months to tune up my own head.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing I wish they actually taught in school. And I'm hoping that as we evolve as humans, that it becomes more acceptable to maintain ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, we don't get training on finances at a young age. We don't get training on how to deal with people, right? We just don't. You know, if you don't fit in, you're screwed. Yep. That's kind of the way life goes. And I've just always had that ability to, if I don't fit in, how can I lead? How can I take maybe a parallel path or a different path and lead in that aspect? And it's basically by taking, when I meet people, there's certain boxes that light up in my head.
Yep.
Okay, if I could emulate, you know, this, like the way Lance talks, he's got that soft tone, but
Put
like,
you to sleep. Yeah.
no. It's like, that was one of the first things, is like, dude is super humble. Like, I want to be friends with Lance.
Thank
I
you.
want, the more I can be exposed to Lance, the more humility I can learn. And I do that with everybody I meet, right? I do that. In fact, I was just talking to another fellow. So when I was going to school down in the States, you know, I couldn't work. So my wife started a landscaping company because she's a U.S. citizen, right?
Oh, is she? Oh,
Yeah.
Cool.
And I volunteered for that company. And one of the things I volunteered doing was putting up Christmas lights at this one guy's house in Rexburg, Idaho. And I'm talking like, the city of Lethbridge can't compete with this guy's yard with Christmas lights. Like, it is like unbelievable. And all he wanted to do every year was spend more and more money on doing these lights. And we had lifts out there, and like, it was, you know, tens of thousands of dollars of lights for Christmas. And that was just, he loved doing it. So with him, I was able to pick, you know, like, something so trivial as putting up Christmas lights. But this guy knows what he wants, and it doesn't matter to him how much it costs. This is what brings him joy, and he's willing to invest in it. And that's kind of how, okay, what brings me joy? Then I'm going to invest in that, right?
Sure.
And every once in a while, if I have to go talk to someone to get myself back on track, to know what makes me happy, I have no problem doing that. So back to my buddy who hadn't been out of the house for a while, you know, I actually gave him the phone number to the lady that I talked to, and it was like, I mean, I haven't talked to her for a while. I don't want to sound like, I still struggle with maintaining myself.
Yeah.
Yep.
I really do. I want to be better. But I gave him her number, and I was just like, man, like, we have to get over the tough guy attitude
Big
on
time.
things.
Big
Like,
time.
you know, I dislike, you know, the kind of stuck up type attitude about a man has to have the right answer all the time.
Yep.
You know, you gotta be in the right at all times, and you gotta be, you know, the cornerstone, and you gotta be this, and you gotta be that. And it's like, man, like, that's a lot of pressure.
And no emotion.
And no
Either,
emotion.
right?
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
you dare.
Yeah.
Don't
'Cause
you
that's-
dare show emotion.
And because that's insecurity.
Yeah.
It's all. I
Yeah.
mean, just I've gone to counseling. I love counseling. I go all the time.
Yeah.
And that it's a big. It's like I'm all about like, some friends of mine. We saw this in our group, and we started. We called it toafing, talking about our feelings. But just dudes around a fire, just shooting the shit, and like,
Yeah.
how you doing, man? You know, because it's tough for it. We have to, like you said, we have to get past this male. Like, you can't be vulnerable. You can't be, share your feelings, or or even like going after whatever's going on in your head, or figuring out why. Like, if something goes wrong in your car, you're gonna diagnose it. You're gonna troubleshoot. You're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Well,
We don't do that to ourselves.
we
though.
don't do that. For
Never.
ourselves.
No,
when,
never.
when someone talks to me about this particular thing, and I have this like physical reaction to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
what's causing that?
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing. You'd put money into to a mechanic, an expert on how to figure this out and diagnose and fix and move on, so you can drive down the road in peace.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that to our brains?
Yeah.
Right? It's 'cause
Depending
it's
how we
not
get-
macho. It's bullshit.
Depending how we get how we're raised too. Like if you're in a,
yeah,
in a
big time.
house where we didn't talk about feelings, I didn't,
Yeah.
No.
and it's
Me
like
neither.
you do that for whatever 18, 19 years, and then things happen, and you
Yeah.
remember the first time I went to a counselor, I was nervous because I'm like, I don't like to talk about my
Yeah.
feelings. Never have, and then you open it up and you're like, holy shit, that feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get those couple. I don't know. It's just it's like enlightening, and there's almost a weight off your shoulders, and
Of
Yeah.
course.
it takes a while to get comfortable with it. But I think we need to take care of ourselves.
Well, I, by nature, was a very tender-hearted kid.
Yeah.
Like,
you can tell. You can tell that.
when
even now.
I was young, it didn't take much to make me cry,
Yeah.
right? And I actually didn't get my size till after high school. Like when I graduated high school, I was 6'1" and about $150. Like, but I was short up until about grade 10 maybe, and then I started growing, right? So I didn't want to be the short kid that was emotional either, too. I didn't want to be the,
what's the perception of it too?
It's-
I don't want to
yeah.
look right. Like
yeah, I don't want to look like a
that's
wimp,
that's a
you know?
bad mindset to have,
Yeah.
right?
Like, that's society.
Yeah, that is. So then when I got my size, I think I fell into the trap of being a little cocky, right?
No.
Now, I've talked to people over the years, and most people have never taken me as cocky, but that may be how I was able to bring my stuff through some of the trials. Was in my own head, I was like, well, no
Yeah.
big deal. I got that, But, in reality, self-esteem is constantly growing, right? I don't beat myself up. That's one thing. I don't know if that's something that some people constantly do, or if they fall into a vicious circle of that. I don't beat myself up. Do I have regrets? Absolutely. Do I let them determine who I am today? Absolutely not, because then it wins.
Yeah.
That wins. And if it wins, we didn't learn from the experience, right? There's no sense dwelling on the past. Live in the now, live for the future, and hopefully along the way you can help someone else by your example, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I actually, when I watched that video with Larry Chen, I was tearing up. And even myself, I was trying to fight it. I'm like,
Why?
I'm by myself. I can let a tear roll down
I'm
my
locked in
cheek
my office.
in this
Nobody's-
moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course.
And I was like, I just kept holding it in, like,
Yeah.
And it's like, why? Why am I so afraid to express my emotions of? In there, it was just absolute gratitude.
Of course.
Right? Absolute gratitude. To have someone like Larry, who is an icon in the automotive industry, who has taken thousands of pictures and thousands of videos of things, to spend over a half hour with something that, I put my heart and soul into, and appreciate every aspect of it, and was excited about it,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
that to me, like, even my wife and oldest daughter were like, your hard work paid off. Like, congratulations. That was a feel-good moment, right? And it's like, yeah, like we have sacrificed. We've sacrificed things financially. I've sacrificed time. I've got 5 kids. There has been a lot of times where I have chosen my work and my play over my family, which is terrible. terrible. However, the time I do spend with my family as I become older, I try to have it be more quality time. Like I have the best relationship with my oldest daughter right now. You know, all our kids are really good. We don't struggle with our kids at all. We get along good as a family. The two youngest are kind of a pain in the ass sometimes, but I think that's just with the growing pains, right? Yeah. You know, I love my family, and it took me a long time to realize that that's who's in your corner. It's no one else is really in your corner. Friends can be in your corner, things like that, but when it comes to the brass tacks of your life, you've only got who sleeps under the same roof of you, basically, at the end of the day. So you have to maintain that. You have to keep that in alignment with what you're doing.
So we covered a lot of awesome stuff. I want to.
This is super tangent, man.
I
Sorry.
love it. No,
I can talk for hours about nothing.
No, it's not. But this is stuff that needs to be talked about, especially the mental health piece.
Yeah,
like especially the mental health piece in men. Like we got to get away from that macho mentality. But I want to talk a little bit about. You mentioned Rampy and Larry, and do you want to talk a little bit about how Rampy came to be? And
sure.
You mentioned how it was for sale and you couldn't quite afford it because you were living on $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And what happened from there? Who helped you with the truck, and where are you going to go with it in the future?
Okay, so back to when I couldn't afford it. I was in school, and the way I made excess money in school was I searched eBay for small items that I could find at like a wrecking yard, for example. Anything geared to the automotive industry, that was my forte, right? But I knew that my buddy was successful with his Toyota stuff. So with that knowledge, I'd go to the wrecking yards and I'd ask him, hey, what's the most things you sell? He's like, oh, locking hubs and the digital clocks out of Toyota trucks. Okay. So I'd go do my laps once a month around the wrecking yards and I'd clean them out. I'd take a tool bag and I'd fill it full of lock-in hubs, the stock ones, and digital clocks and all this stuff. And I listed on eBay. And that's how I made excess spending money for ourselves. And that's where I found Rampy, was going through a yard in Idaho Falls called Charlie's. It was just an old guy that sat behind the desk. He had more ashes in his beard than in the ashtray, right? Loved that guy. And he'd let me wander in his yard, and I'd go out there with a bag of stuff, come back, and that bag would literally be about $1,500 worth of stuff, and he'd sell it to me for about $50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I would go do my rounds. I'd check out this cool truck. I had no idea that Corvair even made a truck until I saw this one. And I saw it, and I was like, what on earth is that? That is so ugly. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, like that is the most unique vehicle I've ever seen. And then when I walked around the passenger side and saw that the bedside folded down, and this was back in the day when I had a Nokia phone with the green screen and the texting was ... you know.
T9.
So I had to wait till I got home to go on the dial-up, right?
Oh, yeah.
To check out this Corvair 95, because I didn't even know it was called a Rampside at the time, right? The badge on the fender said Corvair 95. So I looked it up, and I was like, man, this is awesome. So that was my favorite thing, to stop there, go through the yard, check out Rampy, and kind of carry on. Well, it was probably through the winter. I didn't go through that yard, and in the spring I show up there and the fence is down. All the vehicles parked up front are gone. There's a crusher in the back and a bunch of crushed cars, and I was just shattered, like, whoa. And I was like, what happened? Like, well, Charlie died, and you know, his family had us come clean it up. And I was like, oh, it's gone, right? It's gone. $700, no title. I didn't know the process of even getting a title. I knew that if you brought a vehicle to Canada without a title, it's branded parts only, right? So I didn't want to do that. So, I mean, financially, I couldn't have done it anyway. It's gone. Okay, I'll find one day, you know? So we moved to Kansas City. I spent a couple of years there, come back home, and gosh, it's been probably 8 years now. I was part of a Facebook swap and buy for men in Idaho. And this truck shows up, and I knew it was the truck because on the hood, well, there's no hood, but on the nose, there was this little chrome piece that someone had put on there, and it's so off center. Like I mentioned that in Larry's video.
Yeah.
But that's what I noticed in the first photo, and I was like, that's it. That's the truck. $2,800, right?
Oh.
I called my buddy Cody that lives in Idaho Falls, and I was like, dude, I found it. I'm going to wire you the money today. I'll call him, go pick that thing up tomorrow. It was in Boise now, right? He's like, yeah, no problem. So I called the guy who had it listed for sale. I said, I'm not even bartering with you. I already wired the money to my friend in Idaho Falls. He's coming to get it tomorrow. He's like, oh, okay. I didn't want to risk, that guy being gun shy with a foreigner. There's a bit of a mentality in the U.S. where if you're from outside of the U.S., it's a no, right? I'd rather deal with someone locally. I'd rather deal with the U.S. citizen. I mean, then that's fine.
Yeah,
I'm not holding that against them. They save themselves a lot of heartache with scams that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So I didn't want to come across as a scammer. Like, hey man, I'm sending the money to my buddy. He's coming to pay you cash for that. Will you hang on to it? He said, yeah, I'll hang on to it. Perfect. So Cody went and grabbed it and drove it straight up here, like on a trailer, of course, and brought it across the border for me, brought it to my house, and I just fell in love.
Yeah.
Like I already loved that truck. But seeing it again after so many years, it was unbelievable. It was 2004 or 5 was probably the last time I saw it, and then purchased it again in, 7 or 8 years ago, whatever that is, 2015.
Were your gears going as soon, like when you got it home when Cody brought it over the border and you got it in here? Were your gears going, spinning? What do you want to do with it?
The fellow I bought it from had bagged it already. And so in my head, it was, let's put some big chrome wheels on this thing. It's already got the suspension. I'll find a good running engine, like the stock 6-cylinder engine, because I just want to drive it. This thing's so cool. If I can just drive it, that's going to satisfy, what I need out of this. And so it took a number of years. I had a number of friends coming over and we'd work on it. And some of my friends worked on it without me even there, and it sat on my lift one time for a year and I never even touched it. Like it got to be a burden for me at some point because I knew I was going in the wrong direction with it. So it was very difficult to become motivated to work on it. So I finally found a car that had a running engine in it. So I bought that car, pulled the engine. The car was rusted away. I mean, there was nothing left. Put it in the truck. We did the brakes. We did the ball joints. We did everything to this truck to get an inspection done on it, right? And I actually got it inspected and drove it about 500 yards. And I was like, this is stupid. Like, this is the dumbest. It was a 4-speed truck. The linkage is like 8 feet long, right?
Yeah.
It was the sloppiest shift pattern, the most anemic when it came to horsepower. Like I talked to you when I was a kid, I love to take things apart and try and make it faster, right?
Yeah.
And I just knew when I was building that, when we were getting it ready, that this is not the direction I want to go. And I turned that truck around, brought it back to my yard. My nephew Brock and my friend Brock came to the shop, and 3 hours later, it was completely gutted. I listed the engine for sale, shipped it out to Nova Scotia, actually.
Wow.
And took the original suspension and kind of chucked it aside. And it was at that point where it's like, okay, what are we doing with this? So then I'm talking to people, and some of my mentors in town here, like Bill Landry. I think people around Lethbridge know him. He drives that old Willys. And he took me under his wing when I was into Jeeps. Back in the day, I had a mint 81 Jeep CJ7 that, I put a big engine in and lifted. And when somebody told me, you got to talk to Bill Landry at CEP. So I go talk to him. We've been friends ever since, right? Yeah. And he's helped guide me. I didn't always listen to him. I still did the stuff where he's like, I don't know if I'd do that. Well, I want to do it, so I'm going to do it. And then realize, okay, his way was better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because he's the Jeep guru,
of
right?
Course,
His family is Jeep. Like, that's just
his
who they are.
His sister had a ton of Jeeps.
His
His
I dealt with his sister Yvonne at Marshall's for years. Like just an all-around fantastic family. And he told me about these brackets by Dobberton Performance for putting C5 suspension under. He said, this is what you should do, and then you can, you know, put a mid-engine in this thing. And because I was like, well, I got to put a V8 in it, but, you know, I guess LS swap, but I don't have a whole lot of knowledge in that, so maybe I'll just go with 350. And then I'm kicking myself in my own brain like, no, you're not building it the way you want. Like, don't go down, don't fall in that same rut.
That's
because
really,
it's easy.
That's a really interesting thought, because those two paths, whether it was putting the stock engine in it, just getting it going so I can drive it, and then like there's that temptation for the 350, but then there's this third path that that's what I really want to do. What was keeping you from that path? What made you go to those other two or think about those other two?
My own self-doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, my own self-doubt of being able to follow through with the project, because I
think that's common.
I'm very famous for buying something and doing a bunch to it, but never finishing it. But like I said, I would satisfy my own, I guess, inner win on what I did, and then I'd sell it. You know, I didn't lose money on the project.
Yeah.
I never lost. Okay, maybe two that I can think of.
Don't count too many.
Like, we're like, ooh, I'm not going to try that again, right? But my family, my wife especially, has always been fascinated with how I can buy a piece of shit and turn it into something that somebody wants.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and make money on it. Right. And everybody knows that if I'm selling it to them, even if you're my friend, I am making money on it.
Yeah.
Like that's just what I do. It's programmed into me. It's a good deal for you, but it's also a good deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So back to Rampy. I ended up finding a wrecking yard online that specializes with Corvettes. So I bought the front suspension, rear suspension, transmission, differential, got it shipped up to Great Falls, went and picked it up. Bought these brackets from Dobberton, picked it up. Okay, went and priced out an engine from Davis. Can't afford that just in one shot. Gonna wait on that. We don't need it right now. You know, let's do this. Little did I know, you know, that there was going to be basically a 2-year window at my buddy's shop of building this thing. Like, I still had this vision of 6 to 8 months, going to be done. It's going to be awesome. I'll be at Street Wheelers next year. That was very famous for that. I'll have Rampy there next year. Don't worry about it. I said that for 7 years, right? This year was finally, I parked Rampy for the week before Street Machine weekend, because I'm like, I'm not jinxing this. I am not going to risk, you know, blowing up or having some issues or hitting a deer or whatever. Like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's running. I'm not touching it. Right. So as we're building this truck, we're at my buddy Lloyd's shop. He has LT Industries on kind of the southeast end of town here. And he's a wizard when it comes to fabrication. He really is. Very old school, right? Very old school. Take him all these parts. Take him Rampy. And he just kind of sits there. He's very quiet, soft-spoken. And I kind of tell him what I want. I show up. He's got some parts cut. I show up again. There's something welded together. You know, I'd come and help, do things. I assembled the suspension. You know, I did a lot of the work besides the welding that he did. He did all the welding, all the fabrication on there, which I'm grateful for. I can do the welding. It wouldn't look as good as his. It wouldn't be finished right now. You know, I've reached that stage in my life where I realize I need help when it comes to these things, because I can't do it myself. I do not have the time to run a business and do this and finish it within my attention span. That's my own inner battle, right? Is I've only got a limited amount of time that I can put my heart and soul into something that's like, well,
next,
I didn't finish. Next, you know, I'm excited about this now.
We had a good run.
We had a good run. Well, prime example, January I sold F-Max, which was my 76 F600 that I wanted to build so bad, right? Found this truck while crushing. It was a crew cab, 3-ton chassis, Ford truck, so it had the big fenders up front. We pulled that cab off, put it on an F350 chassis, and dropped a Duramax into it. And it was sitting on 24-inch semi wheels, right? Oh. We machined those out, triangles instead of circles, and I powder coated them white to look like an old steel, wagon wheel, because that's the look I want. I mean, sitting in my shop with the bags dropped, that thing, I could have watched that thing forever just collect dust because it was that cool looking. But Brian Scotto from Hoonigan had messaged me when I first posted. He's like, hey, if you ever want to sell that, let me know. I'm like, that's not going to happen. This, I'm going to tow Rampy around with this, right?
Yeah.
Which was, again, against the whole idea of me building Rampy. I built Rampy to drive, not to put on a trailer and tow somewhere, right? So he ended up buying F-Max. In the beginning of December, I hit him up. I said, hey, look, man, I've come to the realization that is too big of a project and is going to take way too much more time, finances, energy than I'm willing to put into it, right? So if you want it, I'll sell it to you. And that's how I met those guys, was hauling that truck down there and meeting those guys, which was awesome, right?
Cool.
Great experience. Took my 3 oldest kids, and we had a blast. In fact, my kids, they rub it into Holly because they're like, Mom, that was like the best family vacation we ever had. Right? And she's just like, yeah, you guys don't get to do fun things like that without me ever again, right? So back to building Rampy. We're about 700 hours of clocked fabrication into that truck, and there's countless hours that were donated by Lloyd. Materials were donated by Lloyd. I spent, I don't know how many hours actually, but it was over a 3 or 4 month period wiring that thing. There is miles and miles of wiring under that truck because it's got a transmission that's behind the cab, but the signals have to come into the cab and then back out of the cab to the battery box, right? And the computer. There's signals from the air ride system that have to come up into the cab and back to the wheel sensors, right? There's the engine harness. Everything's designed to go through a firewall.
Yeah.
Rampy doesn't have a firewall, right? So every harness had to be modified and had to be extended, which I was able to do myself because of the work I do. I'm very proficient with soldering and with wiring, things like that. And wiring a project is probably one of my biggest fears because it's the unknown for me, but I had to do it on Rampy. I had to face those fears and I had to just buckle down and do it. And that's probably why it took me 3 to 4 months, because every day I was like, shit, I do not want to go run these wires. But then I thought, you know what? It's just one wire at a time.
How was that, kind of facing that fear? Like when you finished the wiring, was that like a great accomplishment? Did you feel just stoked for that?
So RPM here in town, Colin Richter, they came over and did the tuning on Rampy. So they came over for the first startup. And if there wasn't so many dudes there, I'd have probably had tears run down my face, because that was such a milestone for me to hear that thing fire up and sit there running, even though I knew it wasn't ready to drive yet, but such a boost and a relief, right? At that point, and a win for me, right? And it just gave me that extra,
motivation to kind of keep going through it.
Yeah.
So having Rampy finished, I want you to take me through the feeling, to describe the feeling of, okay, so you parked it the week before, just so nothing happened. And then Thursday night, or let's say, because for those of you who don't know, we have this in Lethbridge, Alberta. We have every year this an event called Street Machine Weekend, where they do like a drive-in on Thursday, a cruise on Friday, 100-foot drag races on Saturday, and then a car show on Sunday. And people come from all over the place to do. It's amazing. It's been 44 years, I think.
Yeah, and I would say this year was the biggest car show at Galt Gardens I've ever been to.
It was
massive.
How many cars do you think?
They figured over 500 cars.
Jeez.
But when the paper printed it, I believe they said it was about 1,000 spectators. I'm like, are you crazy? If there's 500 cars there, that's 1,000 people there by itself.
Yeah.
Nobody comes by them. I did, but nobody comes by themselves there. It's a family.
Of course,
thing, right? I would say there was at least 3,000 people in that park at all times.
It's an incredible weekend, and it's a great weekend to network and to meet people with the same passion and stuff. But having gone, I love Street Machine Weekend. It's my favorite event of the year, and I get excited for it. But so there's obviously a ton of build up in your head for this event.
Yeah.
Especially because you're building Ramp. It's okay, we're good to go. Runs, We're gonna let it sit for a week until it starts. What was the feeling like driving into town in Rampy, going to Street Wheelers for this thing that you've been wanting to happen for years?
It was so surreal that even with my cutouts open, it was silence, right? Like I was so in the moment. I don't know if you noticed my social media this weekend was quite dead, right? I usually try and post 2 or 3 pictures a day. That's kind of what I try and do. It doesn't always happen, but this weekend was especially dead because I lived in the moment this entire weekend. And it felt to me like if I start taking pictures, I'm taking away from, what I need out of this, right? This was a moment for my mental clarity of just, I'm going to enjoy finishing something. I'm going to enjoy meeting a goal. I'm going to enjoy this for me. I don't mind sharing it with people after the fact. I do have, but I took like 6 pictures all weekend, man. Like seriously, like that's it. The video that I posted, I think the night of the car show, Sunday night, basically includes everything I have from the weekend. Thursday night, I was actually driving back from Billings. And so Friday I came to work and my guys just knew that today is his day. Like I didn't work. I tinkered on the truck a little, and just kind of took my time to be prepared for Friday night. And I took my youngest son actually out with me because my wife and 2 younger daughters, the middle daughter and the youngest, were at a girls' camp. My son Dax, he works for West Wind Air Spray out here. He's doing their chemical and fueling up airplanes and stuff like that, and he works long hours. And then my oldest daughter, she's the head lifeguard at McGrath Pool, and she's same thing. She's got that job, another job on the west side. Wow. And so it was just me and my second youngest child, who's my youngest son. And he was looking forward, Dad, like, hey, when are you coming to get me? I said, son, I've just got to do a few things and then I'll be there. So I picked him up about 6:30. We came back to town, got in the truck, and he was talking to me on the way to town, and I had a very hard time hearing the entire sentence because I was so in my head of I'm making it this year. Like I literally have 5 miles to get to the water tower and I'm going to be in it. The Friday night cruise, I'm finally going to be driving this thing. Like I didn't even think it was real, to be honest with you. It was the most surreal thing I think I've ever felt because it's taken so long to get there. And last year, actually, I gave myself kind of a false hope, like, hey, we're going to get there this year, And 3 days before Street Machine weekend, I looked at my buddy Lloyd and I was like, we're not going to make it, are we? And he's like, no. He's like, I couldn't tell you we weren't going to make it. But he says, I knew we weren't going to make it. And I was like, and it's fine. It's fine. But again, just another year of kind of being let down, right? Feeling like I let myself down, right? But not dwelling on it, right? You can't dwell on that kind of stuff. You just have to move on. So this year, going and making that turn at the water tower and getting stuck in traffic right there, I was like, this is amazing. I don't even care if I sit under this damn bridge all day. Yeah. I'm on the strip and I made it,
We're here.
So one of the greatest things is once we were in traffic, I'm focusing on what's in front of me and what's beside me, not as far as like, oh, that's a cool truck. Like who the hell is going to slam on their brakes and who's going to try and change lanes in front of me? That's the one thing you have to do. It's probably the only time of the year that someone in a vehicle has to drive like you're on a motorcycle, where it's like nobody sees me, they're going to kill me. You have to have that mindset, right? So we're driving down the strip and crew was like, oh, Dad, these people said this. Oh, Dad, these people, like he was just giving me the play-by-play and I was just eating it up. Because again, I was in the moment and paying attention to driving, but waving at people, and I just told him, I said, man, just smile and wave. You just got to smile and wave at everyone because they're going to want to see this. And then when they hear it, then they're going to be like shouting out at us, right? And so he did really well as far as like, giving people thumbs up and waving at people and talking to people. And yeah, we cruised up and down the strip a few times, and it was incredible. Parked once and watched a few vehicles then. And it was funny because I called my oldest son, Dax, who's our second oldest. And I was like, hey, do you want to take the Galaxy out? Which has never happened. Like, nobody drives that car but me.
Really?
Yeah. And he's like, yeah. And if he wasn't such a responsible kid, I would have never even asked that question, right? But I knew he was ready. He's like, well, we're going to go get, he's got a girlfriend and another one of his friends and his girlfriend and another buddy. And I was like, okay, take it. But I said, you let them enjoy the crowd. You have to watch what's in front of you. You just do. Mm-hmm. And he did awesome. Like, when I parked and was able to see my son driving that car up the strip and all that traffic, that was another win for me, right? Like, my dad would have never let me take that car at 17. Like, not in a million years. No way. Anytime I took that car out as a kid is when he was away for work, as far as going to help my great aunt and uncle out in Oregon or something, right? Like, it was always, if he was gone for a few days, I'm checking a battery in that thing, taking it off the blocks, and I am ripping up the gravel. Like, yeah, it was always sneaking it out. And he told me when I was young, he's like, when you graduate high school, I'll give you that car. So, I mean, immediately when I graduate high school, I got my hand out, right? And he's like, I didn't say how long after high school. I was like, dang it. So it actually wasn't until when I was crushing cars that my dad was like, that thing sat in our Quonset for 30 some odd years. Like, we had it painted probably 25 years ago, and the college went through the engine and transmission just because it sat for so long. And when I was crushing cars, my dad was like, why don't you drive that thing across the scales and give me scrap value for it? And I was like, absolutely. And I'm not ashamed to, that people know that, that's daddy gave him that car. Yeah, pretty well. He did pretty well.
Well, that's a different, that's like heirloom status.
Yeah, that's definitely heirloom.
Yeah.
Definitely heirloom.
Yeah, for sure.
But just a good car that I have memories as a kid, and we've actually taken our kids to Supercross in Salt Lake City with that car. Like, I drive that car. My dad didn't drive that car. He liked keeping the miles low, and when he did offer to sell it to me at scrap value, I said, are you sure? Because I'm going to drive it. He wanted it to stay basically stock, which, to look at, it's pretty well stock. I did have to do my personal touches of some tires and wheels and things. And then we did some engine tuning where it looks stock still, but it's definitely not stock. And now it's actually really fun to drive. Like, that's a factory 394 barrel car.
Oh, cool.
2-door hardtop. It's the original interior.
What is it? What year is it?
Top. It's a 65 Galaxy 500 XL. It's got just turned 80,000 miles on it. And it runs so smooth. It is one of the nicest cars to drive. And for going on road trips, I love it. I absolutely love it.
That's cool.
So this whole weekend's been kind of a culmination, or this past weekend, culmination of the blood, sweat, tears.
Yeah.
And then even with your son driving the Galaxy, that must have just been a really
it was a proud dad moment for
sure,
sure, right? It was a proud moment where there was just, like I said, everything about this weekend was positive for me. Going to the car show, going to the 100-footer. We talked about cruising, going to the 100-footer on Saturday. Like, again, just roasting the tires for the crowd and hearing them cheer was like, it's incredible.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's incredible. Running that thing down the track, and I'm only competitive with myself, right? And every time slip I got was faster than the last one. And that's all that matters to me, right? Is, can I do better than what I did yesterday? Mm-hmm. Kind of thing. And I went from a 2.69 to a 2.50 to a 2.49, right? Like, that to me, I was like, I got second place, second to Bill Landry, which if there's anyone
that's cool
to come second to, absolutely a mentor, right?
Yeah.
Like 100%.
He's the king.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, there were 6 different classes. We were in class 3, which is basically street class, right? So lived in that moment, loved every minute of it. Saturday night, came out here, grabbed the Galaxy. My wife and other kids came into town. They hopped in the back and we cruised around in the Galaxy Saturday night. And then when our 2 youngest became too annoying to sit in there anymore, then sent them home. And my oldest daughter, Dagan, and myself came back, grabbed Rampy, went and tore it up, and parked at the Coast Hotel because we had some friends there. And then it was like, you want to go for a ride? So then I started taking people on rides, knowing that, okay, we got to get home because I got to get up early, be back at the car show. I didn't get home till 2:30 in the morning because I met so many cool people, friends of friends from Calgary that are only down this weekend. Well, I'm not going to pass up the opportunity to make those connections and make those friends just because I'm tired, right?
Yeah,
because of, I'm going to stick it through to the end. And so, like I say, we stayed out till 2:30 and then ripped home. I got a few hours of sleep. The alarm went off Saturday morning. I was like, hell no.
Yeah.
And almost for a split second was like, I don't even care if I go to the car show.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, you have to. You have to. And so I had a list of things, the honey-do list. My wife and kids were taken off to Montana for the week. So they needed me to get our little dirt bike trailer ready for them to haul the kayaks down and whatever else. So I run out to my dirt bike trailer. Oh, that's a bald tire. Great. Lucky I have the tools needed to change the tire. I changed that tire. When I went to pull it off, these wheel bearings are a little bit loose. So
Of course.
I put on the rubber gloves, packed some wheel bearings, went to the other side, just pulled the tire off and did the wheel bearings on that side too, because it's like they're driving 3 or 4 hours. Like, I'm not putting my family at risk because I have to go to a car show, right? So got them all settled, text my son, and I was like, hey, you're going to have to load everything. Like, I do not have time. The trailer is ready. It's safe.
Roadworthy.
I got to go. So I ripped into town. I had to come out to the shop here. By the time I pulled up to the car show, it was just about 11 o'clock. And, registration is from 8 to 9:30 or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm here now, So we parked, and I basically did not leave Rampy's side for the entire car show. I mean, when you came up, Lance, you saw it was just
Everyone was
there. And what I love about it is they want to talk about it. It's not just a look and then on to the next one.
Yeah.
They look and they're intrigued. And then, like, if they can pick out in that crowd who owns this thing, they'll stand there and they will wait till I'm done talking to someone, and then they'll ask the questions. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that about this truck, is that no matter where I go, I'm making connections.
Yep.
Making connections with people. And it's so rewarding.
What was as we kind of wind down here, what did you learn about sticking with a goal and seeing it through? Because that was ultimately I feel like you're reading my book, because I have a ton of projects that I haven't finished and sold and whatever, and I'm kind of my wife's the same way. Are you gonna do this? Finish this one? But what have you learned about finishing a project and the things people need, or the mindset people need in order to do that?
I think it's something that if you can harness your energy of distraction and focus that on one thing, like even during that project, I bought this Bronco. Do I need this Bronco? Like a hole in the head. Have I always wanted one? Absolutely. Came across this, had to have it, right? But like, I haven't done anything to it yet, right? I've been able to leave it alone and focus on finishing this truck. And I think for me, it was finally realizing that you can't have all this stuff. But that's not a bad thing. You don't need all this stuff. Find something you like, focus in on it, and just do it.
Yeah.
And it's, in fact, Bill Landry's son Curtis said, I've seen him say it online even, hour a day for his projects, right? It's just an hour a day. And that's all it takes, man.
Yeah.
If you can find time to go to the gym for an hour a day, if you can find time to watch TV an hour a day, sit on your phone on TikTok. I've done that for an hour a day. You know, that's not something to be proud of, but it's happened. You've got an hour a day to work on your project, and that will keep you interested, and that will keep you don't even have to be spending money on it, right? There's always some sort of manual labor you can be doing when you have a project, and it might be the stuff you don't want to do, right? But that's the best time to do it, is like, I only have to do it for an hour. So go out there.
Coming back then.
Yeah, it just keeps you coming back. Yeah. Yeah. So focus that energy on one thing. And I actually, there was a couple of years go by where I didn't buy any projects. I'm like, I'm not buying any projects till Rampy's done. And I stuck to that. Like, it's like, I'm not buying this. I had the idea, the goal of building Rampy, and then the Ford version, like the Econoline.
Oh, yeah.
The Dodge version, the A100. Those three were going to be my trifecta. Like, I've got to have those three. I don't have to have those three, man.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Got that one.
This one is everything I wanted it to be, and it does everything I need it to do.
Yeah.
Sounds like your bucket's full from that project.
You know what?
Some.
Yeah.
I easily fill my bucket, right? It doesn't take much to amuse me. It doesn't take much to keep me excited about things. But there's just some things that I put in my bucket that I can take out, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And that's not one of them.
Yeah, that's not one of them. This will be the heirloom.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know who's going to end up with it, but this is not leaving our family. Like, this is one that I honestly don't care if I ever build another one, you know, another vehicle. I will, but
it's a memory maker.
It's a memory maker. Yeah. This is the one truck that I guess it just kind of emulates me, you know, kind of goofy looking on the outside, but you know what? It'll make you smile when you get to know it.
Right on. So getting into kind of winding down the, as far as if someone wants to get into, I mean, you got a million irons in the fire, but as far as automotives or just building their own stuff, or getting into the automotive industry or custom vehicle kind of industry, what advice do you have?
I think the advantage that we have nowadays is the internet, right? There's so much good that you can use the internet for. It's the bad that is easily accessible.
Yep.
But when it comes to what you want to do for work or what path you want to choose, okay, if you want to learn about welding, why not watch some welding videos, right? Watch it enough that it's like, man, do I want to buy a little welder, or do I want to talk to a buddy and just go over, you know, everybody has friends that has connections with someone that has something that you can try, right? You know, you just do. You might not be looking hard enough yet, but you've got people in your life that are willing to help you. You do. And you can find those people and you can do things. So for me, I guess the number one thing I would suggest to anyone who's looking for a path is first of all, watch a YouTube video on it. See if that's something that intrigues you enough to take the next step of getting your hands on it, right? Whether that be borrowing it from someone or going over and learning some hands-on. You know, if you don't know, if you're looking at the trades, go talk to your local town plumber. You know, hey, can I shadow you for a day? I'm sure they'd be all over that, right? And if they're not, that's not the right guy to follow anyway.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. You dodged
carpenter.
The bullet, yeah.
There's so many things that you can do if you just get over your self-doubt and go out there and ask the questions. You know, in school, that's the number one thing is teacher, don't be afraid to ask questions. Well, as a kid, I was afraid to ask questions. As an adult, I'm afraid to ask questions. Get over it.
Yeah.
Get past that vulnerability and just
Yeah.
What about so with that advice, what about some technical skill sets for custom car building, project building? What would be some like technical skill sets that would be necessary or good to develop getting into this field?
I would say, you know, the automotive service technology course at the college, for example, was huge for me. I actually had a really good shop teacher in high school. You know, he took me under his wing. He could see that I loved projects. He could see that I loved working on old cars and stuff like that. And he helped me in high school, I started the build of a 67 GMC. I traded a perfectly good running F-150, the one that my dad bought brand new. Yeah, that wasn't good enough. It had to be a Chevy, right? So it's actually a GMC. I traded that for a non-running in-the-box truck that I never actually got to drive. That was like the first project I started and never finished. Sold it to a buddy of mine, and he finished it. But anyway, the automotive service technology program for me at the college was a good groundbreaker as far as getting that knowledge of rebuilding an engine, right? I rebuilt the engine for my square body Chevy that I was driving at the time, right? It helped me with wiring systems. It helped me with things like that. So for me, that knowledge came from, it was started in high school, but was developed more in college. And then because I love doing it, I always did it, right? Like right now, my son's 17 and we're building a 350 Chevy for him. Would this Land Cruiser be funner with an LS in it? Absolutely. But I want him to learn the aspect of a budget build, right? I don't want him to think that, oh, we'll just go buy this and put it in. No, that like hot rodding and that kind of stuff, that's not what it's about. It's actually about, living within your means and not spending money and trying to do everything yourself, right? So, if you're looking to get into the technical side of things, man, you just might have to dive into it yourself, because there isn't a whole lot of opportunity, as far as what's available to you. You've got a great program at CCH, man. Like, I am super jealous of those kids, to have you as an instructor, number one, but to be exposed to that type of technology as far as your TIG welding, your MIG welding, things like that. Like I believe we had a MIG welder in high school, but only the instructor was allowed to touch that. We could run the stick welding. Well, yeah, I can lay a bird shit weld on anything just as good as the next guy with one of those, right? But man, I don't even know if I have the best advice, but you've got to find something that interests you, and then you've got to do something about it.
Dive in and do it, or gain some fundamental knowledge or theory or skill sets to get into it.
Yeah, you've got to have some basic tools in any trade.
Speaking of tools, top 3 starting out tools.
Top 3 starting out tools. Let's see. I guess your basic. So when I was in high school, our Quonset got broke into and my tools got stolen. That sucked, right? But I think my favorite setup at the time was I had just a Craftsman, 3/8 drive socket set. That's a must-have, for me, even to have in the house. Like
seriously,
just a basic set of tools, screwdrivers. Like I've got my favorite screwdriver is the Snap-on. It's kind of the classic hard handle screwdriver. I will not buy any other screwdriver. I have some that were, came with other tool kits that are hanging on the back wall and they have more dust on them than anything else, because if it's not that one particular screwdriver that I like, I just don't use it. I found what I like, and that's what I like. So screwdrivers were my favorite when I came to the right one. 3/8 drive ratchet set, and then booster packs, man. Yeah. Booster pack is probably the number one tool I would recommend for any 16-year-old kid driving, because you're going to leave your lights on, and you're going to need a boost, and you don't always have someone there to boost you. And you can buy those smaller ones that work great, and that would be like, Or
if you're like yourself and go through a ton of projects, you need those booster packs to get all those projects fired up.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Wayne, this has been awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been so cool, just hearing your stories and getting into your journey and all the different paths you went down that brought you to where you are now. And first, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Absolutely.
Is there here's your time to promote whatever you want to promote. So where can people find you on social media? If you have anything that, as far as your shops here and down in Montana, anything you want to promote, the floor is yours.
Sure. So for our business, it's called Alter Speedo. We're on Facebook. We actually just broke 50,000 followers.
Nice.
This week, which that by itself is crazy, because a month and a half ago I had 300 followers, and that's kind of 343 followers is where it was at.
Wow.
and I had a video go viral, and it's just exploded over the last 3-4 weeks. So Ultra Speedo, I post some how-to videos on repairing things
Oh, cool.
on vehicles as far as speedometer or instrumentation related. You know, like I just posted one here the other day on a dim display for your climate controls in Chevy trucks. Like that's huge. Those are always going out, and it's a simple how-to. It's 1 minute long. You know, it's an easy fix, and you can do it yourself if you have some basic soldering skills. You know, so there's that page. I also have an Instagram page. It's Dick Industries Inc. That is more geared towards just car things. You know, there's a lot of stuff about Rampy on there, about any events that we've been at or that we're going to. That's where that will be. My TikTok, same thing. That's Dick Industries. That's just, you know, more fun things, but also geared towards the automotive industry. And then Instagram is Dick Industries Inc. Or did I already say that? Maybe. Anyway,
Yeah, sure.
that's
Yeah, you said Dick Industries Inc. And then you have one for Rampy.
oh,
too,
and then
right?
YouTube. So YouTube is Dick Industries.
Okay.
Everything was Dick Industries till my Instagram got hacked on our way to LS Fest.
No way.
So that's why I just kind of messed up there, because I'm like, man, did I talk about it? So Dick
Yeah.
Industries Inc. on YouTube shows basically start to finish a Rampy build, right? So if you want to see how
cool.
this truck was built, follow Dick Industries on YouTube. Dick Industries on TikTok has some of the videos there as well. Dick Industries Inc. on Instagram, and then Ultra Speedo for Facebook.
And we will put all of the links to all these accounts
I appreciate
in the
that.
show notes of this episode. And for all other episodes and all our social media links, just check out our Instagram and our social for all other episodes and our social media links, just check out the show notes of this episode. Again, Wayne, this has been incredible.
Thank you.
I could listen to
appreciate
you.
it.
I could listen to you all day.
I'm going to stick around for another 3 or 4
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks
All
for
right.
having me.
Thanks, Hoff.
Thanks, Rosie.
And we'll see you guys in the next one.